I think he was around my 16th ranked player or something like that. Massive riser, but he gets that huge draft cap.
Welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and today we are continuing our coverage of the NFL draft. We've already done a video on our reaction of what actually happened, the draft in general. We did talk a little bit about value changes, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper by looking at the rookies and their rankings. Vaz, you already did a couple of rookie rankings, included a very updated one from a week ago, but clearly after the first round, that has changed already.
Yeah, of course. So it's very important to consider everything before you draft your rookies. And of course, NFL draft is huge and landing spots and draft capital is everything. So my rankings have changed quite a bit, but not the top five. The top five is exactly the same as it was before the NFL draft.
Okay, and as mentioned, staying the same in the first tier. At 1 is Caleb Williams, followed by Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2. So they remain a tier above everybody else.
Yeah, and I mean, what can I say about them? They had phenomenal landing spots. So if I'm discussing this as if you're in a 12-team super flex league. So if that's the case, I have Caleb at 1. I mean, he goes to the Bears, phenomenal landing spot. He's a great talent. So I think if you have a need at quarterback, you take Caleb there. But then I have Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2, and he lands to an amazing landing spot, with Kyler Murray chucking him the ball. There's no other wide receiver on that depth chart that can even demand targets. So it's a phenomenal landing spot. And if you have a need at receiver, like if you're good at quarterback, you can confidently take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 101. And I have no problem with that whatsoever.
For a redraft league this season coming up as a rookie, what do you think Marvin Harrison will go? Like, do you think he'll be like a top 10 wide receiver overall?
Yeah, I would take him in top 10 for sure. Yeah, he's immensely talented. He's going to walk into like over 150 targets out of the gate, I think. So, and he's got a huge touchdown upside, game breaking ability. I think he's instantly a top 10 receiver in standard in fantasy football, and then in dynasties instantly, probably. I'm hesitant to say he's in the Chase Jefferson tier immediately, but he's pretty damn close.
Yeah. So at the very least, a top 5 dynasty asset.
Oh yeah,
certainly
without question.
In the conversation with Jefferson and Chase.
Now I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do? Like! Subscribe!
So the second tier that you have is also the same with Malik Neighbors still at number 3.
Yeah, so I mean, Malik Neighbors still at 3. Not the sexiest of landing spots, going to the Giants, but he's going to demand a lot of targets out of the gate. And you don't love the quarterback situation, but things change quickly in the NFL. I imagine it's like a 1-year thing at quarterback, but they'll probably move on next year. And he's going to get a lot of targets. He'll get a lot of opportunity to produce. There's nothing on the depth chart behind him. So I still have him at 3. I like Odunze's spot more, who I still have at 4. But I think year 1, Neighbors will outproduce Rome because it is a pretty crowded depth chart there. So long term, I like the landing spot for Rome Odunze more. But because I expect Neighbors to outproduce him year 1, I'm going to keep Neighbors ahead of him on my rankings. And let me just say that I have Daniels at 5 still. But Daniels' landing spot in Washington is great. So I really like that. So if you play in a 12-team 2 QB league or a 14-team league, then I'm going to move Daniels up to 3 here. I think they're all in the same tier: Rome, Daniels, and Malik Neighbors.
Okay, but of course, this is based on a 12-team super flex, in which case you currently have Daniels at 5. Let's talk about your next tier. At number 6, you've got JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, so this is a pretty big change. I had him at 9, I believe, in my previous installment, but he gets the nuts landing spot with the Vikings, right? And top 10 draft capital. So phenomenal for JJ McCarthy. And he leaps Drake May here, who had it 6 previously. I just think the landing spot is too good to ignore. I think some people will probably keep Drake May ahead of JJ McCarthy based on talent if they really like Drake May, but I wasn't a huge Drake May fan beforehand. So I do put JJ McCarthy ahead of Drake May here because the landing spot is just so damn good.
Yeah, and I think with Drake May, he's expected to sit the first season, and even on top of that, he just really doesn't have any weapons there yet that we can't, foresee in the future. So there's just a lot of question marks, but obviously the talent is supposedly there. So we got to like the player, but yeah, situational wise, he seems to take a little bit of a hit. You've got those two in a tier of their own, though, right?
Correct. So yeah, I think if you need a quarterback, you could target this range to take either JJ McCarthy or Drake May. Drake May still gets the third overall draft capital, like so. That's phenomenal. He's going to get plenty of opportunity. He might, yeah, like you said, he might start the year on the bench. They might go to him later on in year one if things aren't quite working out. But that's usually good for a top prospect to take it slow. So I think I still like Drake May at number 7. I'm happy to take him there, especially if I need a quarterback, especially if I'm on a rebuilding team, I should say.
All right. And your next tier after that, so this will be your fourth tier now. Leading that off is Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, so I have two guys in a tier here, Brian Thomas Jr. and Brock Bowers. Previously, I had Brock Bowers like quite a bit ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. In a tier of his own, but uh, I mean, like for me, that's a horrible landing spot for Brock Bowers going to Vegas, right? They've got a pretty good tight end on the depth chart already in Michael Mayer, and then they've got like really poor quarterback play and a lot of targets in that offense. That they've got some great receivers there as well. So I had to move Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of him, who gets a pretty good landing spot with the Jags. He's probably instantly Trevor Lawrence's number one target, or like a 1A 1B situation with Christian Kirk. So yeah, I did move Brian Thomas Jr. up a spot here into the top 8 overall picks. Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got a tier cutoff to two more players. At number 10 is Bo Nix, and then at number 11 is Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, so they are very close for me. Bo Nix is a huge riser for me. I think he was around my 16th ranked player or something like that. Massive riser, but he gets that huge draft capital. I think what was it, the 12th overall pick or the 13th overall pick to the Broncos. He gets Sean Payton as his head coach, who's going to scheme up great plays for him. They're going to use his qualities, his strengths to their advantage. And he's got some good talent. He's got some good tape. He played well last year. Some people will say, he doesn't have the weapons, but he's got the great coach. He's got a good run game. They're gonna make things work. They're gonna get him some weapons as well. So I love the landing spot. Love the landing spot for Bo Nix. Love the draft capital even more. And let's talk about Xavier Worthy. He gets a nuts landing spot with the Chiefs. He's got Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. He's got Andy Reid cooking up plays for him. I think Hollywood will probably be gone after next season, and he'll be the main deep threat as well. They'll be using him all over the field, on screens, on slants, on any kinds of routes around the line of scrimmage as well. Like they probably wanted to use Michael Hardman when they drafted him around this position in the second round previously. So they're going to use his speed. Reed knows how to use players who are fast like he is. And I think if you like Worthy, if you liked him beforehand, and you're not so big on Nix, you could swap these guys and take Worthy at 10 and maybe Nix at 11. But if you need a quarterback, I think Bo Nix is a great pick here.
All right. And of course, with Rashee Rice most likely expected to face some sort of a suspension to start the season, you've got to think that Worthy's going to start off strong for a rookie. Sometimes it takes rookies a while to get going, but he should be one of those guys that they're counting on early and often. Your next tier breaks off there and leads into Michael Penix Jr., the surprise pick in Atlanta.
Yeah, and before I get into this tier, let me just say that I expect the first like 10 or 11 picks to be pretty established at this point. Maybe if like the Cowboys draft a running back or if the Bills draft a receiver, they could leap up ahead of these guys, like ahead of Nix or Worthy perhaps. But I think at this point, these are pretty established, the top 11. Once we get to 12 in Penix, I think there will definitely be a couple guys that go ahead of Penix here at 12. I expect if the Cowboys draft a running back, they'll go ahead of this guy, ahead of Penix. And then if the Bills draft a receiver at 33, definitely they will go ahead of Penix at 12. But for the time being, yes, Penix is 12 for me because he gets that elite draft capital at 8. And he goes to a great landing spot in the Falcons who have great weapons long term. I think when you draft a quarterback at 8, you're signaling to everybody that he's your long-term answer at quarterback. They just paid Kirk Cousins, so it was a very surprising pick. I couldn't understand it. I still don't. But you know what? Penix is the long-term answer there. I think that's clear. And you eventually you have to take him based on the draft capital. So I think 12 is a pretty good spot. I feel like the end of round one, the beginning of round two, that's where he'll go in pretty much all rookie drafts.
Okay. And then a couple of wide receivers that were both selected in the first round, also part of the tier in Ricky Pearsall with San Francisco and Xavier Legette, who went to Carolina.
Yeah, so two really surprising picks in my opinion. I had both of these guys going in the middle of the second round in my previous installment. I think around picks 18, 19, something like that. I like them both. I like them both a lot. I think Pearsall is a great route runner, great hands, separates pretty easily. He's going to be a good slot, I think, for the 49ers. I don't know what they're going to do at receiver, but for the time being, I expect that some running backs will move in ahead of these two guys. Legette as well. He's a bit of a riskier pick, but he gets the draft capital. He gets a pretty good landing spot. So for the time being, they're my 13th and 14th player. But as I said, I do expect some other guys to leap them. But I think they will go to in most drafts early to mid second round.
Okay, and you mentioned that whoever the wide receiver that Buffalo takes eventually will most likely leap
Yeah,
these guys, especially if it is a guy like Adonai Mitchell.
yeah.
What if that Adonai Mitchell-esque guy or whoever it might be goes to the Chargers? Would that person then leap these guys as well?
Yeah, I think there's two guys I'm looking at here, and it's Adonai Mitchell and Lad McConkey, who I had above Leggett and Pearsall. So I think if either of those guys go to those two great landing spots, they definitely leap Pearsall and Leggett in my mind because for me they're better players and they go to better situations. So it would be clear, even though it's only a couple of picks, like it's just it is first round and second round, but it is only a couple of picks. So without question, if McConkey or Adonai Mitchell go in early round two to a better landing spot, they will most certainly leap Leggett and Pearsall,
All
and
right.
maybe even Penix as well.
Okay. There you have it. The top 14 picks of the first round after the first round of the NFL draft. Remember, we're going to continue to update based on what happens in day 2 as well as day 3. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you're up to date as we post up these new videos as we analyze what's happening with the NFL draft. Vaz, any final words based on anything with the draft in day 1?
I would just say that, like, in terms of the top end of the draft, like you're thrilled for Caleb and Marvin Harrison Jr. If you have picks 1 or 2, you're ecstatic. And then I think like before there was pretty clear like tiers in the middle from rounds like from picks like 3 to 7, 3 to 8. And that's not really the case anymore. I think like from pick 3 to pick 8, anybody could really go in that range. So it's going to be interesting in rookie drafts how things shake out. But I think, yeah, 1 and 2 are pretty established. And then from 3 to 8 or 3 to 9, it's pretty going to be pretty interesting.
Okay, there you have it. Some interesting things also to look for in day number 2. So check back with us to see our new videos and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Remember what it is, Fantasy Football Freaks.